The truth occurs. The truth occurs.
Hi everyone. Well, as the papers say, radiation levels in Japan causing concern in other countries. They certainly are. I went to 2 pharmacies just to see if they had potassium iodide, and they were sold out. And I'm in Montreal, Quebec, so you can imagine on the west coast. Now, people are trying to figure out exactly how serious is the risk of radiation in North America, because I've looked into this extensively, and the only thing that I can definitely conclude is that we're being kept in the dark. If you're looking for information on the spread of radioactive cloud, there's a few sites you can go to. There's this one from the New York Times, forecast for plume's path is a function of wind and weather, and it'll show you how it's forecast to go across the globe. There's also Weather Underground, which has maps on it as well. And of course there's radiationnetwork.com. dailymail.co.uk quite extensively covered this. This is a little diagram where they talk about the fail-safes, and there were supposed to be 3. You'd think that, you know, there'd be quite a few on something like a nuclear reactor. There's supposed to be fail-safes. So how come they always fail? Then there was a map of the winds, and they're saying that it's moving the radiation out to sea, but you can see that it's going down towards Tokyo as well, and that would explain why the radiation levels are going up in Tokyo. And here's the path, the jet stream, bringing it over to North America. And this here, America on radiation alert, was the most disconcerting part. Worst case scenario. Scientists warned yesterday of a worst case scenario in which the highly radioactive material could be blasted into the atmosphere and blown toward the west coast by the Pacific jet stream, as we see in the graphic above. Some estimates claimed the radiation could arrive on America's shores by this evening, which would have been, I guess, yesterday. Right now, it's quite possible that there could be some radiation floating over the United States, said Nuclear Regulatory Commission spokesman David McIntyre. And then sure enough, on that map I showed you earlier, it now shows that Japan nuclear radiation reached the US West Coast. Of course, there's no health risk, so no need to buy potassium iodide or tape up your windows or whatever. Also, Tokyo passengers are triggering US airport detectors. It says here, radiation detectors at Dallas, Fort Worth, and Chicago O'Hare airports were triggered when passengers from flights that started in Tokyo passed through customs, the New York Post reported. But as Alex Jones mentioned, did they, take them and quarantine them and scrub them down and, put their luggage in like a nuclear waste containment facility? No, they just said, go on through. Just don't bring any breast milk with you. It might explode. But no common sense as usual. And not only are people coming in from Japan contaminated, and some of the radiation has already reached the west coast, but get this, in this article from the Star, which again confirms that radiation has reached the US west coast, it says, in Geneva, the World Health Organization said Tokyo's radiation levels are increasing but are still not a health risk, and the group sees no reason to ban travel to Japan because of its nuclear crisis. You don't? I'd say, it might be a prudent thing to do to not go somewhere where they're having a Chernobyl on steroids. WHO spokesman Gregory Hartle said Friday that the organization is not advising travel restrictions to Japan outside the 30-kilometer exclusion zone around the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear complex. You know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of when they had the swine flu in Mexico, and they said that there was no need to restrict, travel to Mexico. Sometimes I really wonder, how do these people get their jobs? Is it like a prerequisite to be totally stupid if you want to work at the WHO? Well, I guess it must be. But other than that, the obvious total lack of common sense with which the situation is being handled, and by the way, they're not handing out potassium iodide to all of the public, maybe some of the children are getting it, and maybe some people, but I think in these kind of situations it's really every man for himself. Although they did make sure that the military got some. So again, as I said earlier, the only thing I can conclude with 100% certainty is that we're being lied to. As usual. And apart from that, we also had an earthquake here in Quebec just the other day. See, there was a 4.6 trembler near Lachute, which is quite unusual, but not completely unheard of. Also, we had a little radiation leak from a nuclear plant in Ontario, in Pickering. It is possible that this is some kind of conspiracy. I mean, doesn't it seem like a kind of coincidence that first there was the Copenhagen summit, and they want to deindustrialize, and the Illuminati want to reduce the population to like 500 million. They want to deindustrialize. They want to get rid of oil and our main energy sources and have us go back to like living in little shacks or something, rubbing sticks together. So last year there was the oil spill. And this is a reason also why I think we should not panic yet, because you just don't know what's happening. It could be worse, it could be not as bad as they're making it out to be. Remember last year, 30,000 barrels of oil a day, going to flow for the next 30 years, contaminate the whole world, we're all going to die. Didn't exactly turn out like that, although, it's been pretty bad for the Gulf, and it's still pretty bad, and people still are getting sick down there from the contamination, maybe mostly from the Corexit. But anyway, you had the oil spill last year, and that was kind of convenient in terms of their pushing their, New World Order green agenda. Not to say that I'm not for, clean or alternate energy, but there's free energy, it doesn't have to be biofuel, it doesn't have to be very expensive, wind powered or whatever. So they had the oil spill last year. And it's funny, how they said it was so bad, and then, they just plugged it. They said they're going to plug it in August, and then, just like that, they plugged it. Just after they passed some key bills in Congress. And then this year, it's nuclear. It seems kind of weird to me. I mean, kind of convenient for people who are pushing the green agenda. Not the good green agenda, but, like the New World Order version of the green agenda. This year, it's nuclear. Gonna have to get rid of nuclear energy, too. Which might not be a bad idea, but just depends what you replace it with. Did it have to come to this, Just happened to notice that, though. I mean, is it a coincidence? I don't know. So that's the best I could do, trying to keep track of what's really going on with the spread of the radiation. I don't usually get to, vlog much on the weekend. That's fine. I'm going to be spending a lot of time with my son instead of sitting around in front of my computer, trying to make good use of the time that, we do have. And maybe I'll post some updates on my blog. And well, thank you for listening to me, and I'll see you next time.
Truth, the girls.